Hey there, welcome. My name is Jessica Buchanan, and I'm a New York Times bestselling author, professional speaker, and founder of Soul Speak Press, a non traditional publishing company created for women who've been through something, now they know something, and they can teach us something. In Her Words is a podcast designed to support aspiring memoir authors on their writing and publishing journey. It's hard work, this writing and publishing stuff, and I want to empower you with encouragement and information so you can keep sharing your truth. So grab your coffee, your notebook, find a quiet space, and let's dive in. Well, hey there, beautiful people. Welcome back to In Her Words. I'm your host, Jess Buchanan. I'm trying to fix my pop screen filter here. For some reason, it wants to bounce back and hit me in the mouth. Um, wow. Okay. Thanks for hanging in. Last week we ran a repeat, the interview that I did with Krista Clive Smith, who is the founder of Merrick, with whom we are an imprint of. To be honest, I was just too tired to record an episode because we had just had our epic launch. For Deserts to Mountaintops, the Pilgrimage of Motherhood. I hosted a big, huge party here in Alexandria, Virginia, where I live. And we had, let's see, I believe 18 authors, 18 or 19 authors come down. We were missing three. And they came from all over the country. One of them came as far as Australia to come and sign books and to meet all their co-authors in person. It was epic. It was a beautiful weekend. It was a lot of work. And while I'm still riding the high, I'm kind of glad it's over because, there's just so much pressure riding on that day. And this is the first time that we ever launched a book and held the launch party on the same day. Usually we'll have the launch and then we'll do the launch party on the following weekend. But it just so happened that I always launch Deserts to Mountaintops on January 25th. And so that happened to be a Saturday. So all worked out and it was beautiful. And there were so many people there that I didn't even get to talk to, that I didn't even get to meet. Our authors came in, they brought friends, they brought family, they brought their kiddos. It was a free-for-all. There was beautiful food, delicious wine. So many excited people there to cheer on their loved ones and celebrate their courage. It was definitely well worth all the effort. I would say if you are about ready to launch a book or thinking about it in the next 6 months, definitely it's worth the cost and worth the effort to put together an epic launch party because, you know, life is just way too long not to have parties all the time. I'm a big people person. I'm an extrovert with introverted tendencies. And it's a big deal, to what an accomplishment, right? To sit down, put your story down on paper on your computer, go through multiple rounds of sometimes excruciating editing, and to just go through that entire process. So it needs to be celebrated, and I'm always looking for an excuse to have a good time. So that's where we're at today. But for the topic of this conversation, this podcast episode, I've really been thinking for the last several months, but particularly where we're at the recording of this episode, which is February 5th. So I believe it'll come out tomorrow, February 6th. And I'm not going to get political here. And I'm also not going to go into detail about how the changes that are going on in the US politically with the administration are affecting me very personally. However, I have been thinking a lot, and what I'd like to talk about today is how writing our memoirs in the form of memoir manifestos is actually, I consider it a very important form of activism. Um, and, activism is, I think, often very thankless work. It's volunteer, it's your time, your energy, your effort, your network, your emotions, that you're expending. for the sake of the greater good of a cause that you believe in. And oftentimes we are connected to those causes because of a personal experience, right? Um, my cause is women's empowerment and women's liberation because I feel very much like I was a victim of a violent crime, based on the fact that, no one would listen to me and no one believed me, and my voice was silenced largely through a network and an organization of men. And so not part of the whole reason I exist to serve women and to support women in their storytelling is really a form of advocacy for me. I feel it's very important that when women come to us to tell their really hard stories, and we do, we work with the stories that a lot of other publishers wouldn't, whether it's for liability or because they don't think it's sellable, because it's just too triggering or it's too gruesome or it's too real. We don't shy away from that. I always say we don't look away from people's pain, and I think that's what advocates do. They don't look at away from people's pain and they say something. And so I think that memoir manifestos, telling our stories in this way is an act of rebellion. It's courageous, and it's a practice of not looking away from our own pain and also acknowledging others. In an effort to change institutions, to change inequities, to make the world better. I'm always going to strive to make the world better in whatever I do. Whether or not I achieve that remains to be seen, but that is where my heart is. So I have a list here of 8 reasons why I believe that writing your memoir manifesto is a great form of advocacy. Activism. Sorry, I'm trying to say activism and advocacy at the same time. It's, especially, and I'm probably going to be referring most to like women's rights, but there seem to be all kinds of rights and being stripped away. As I'm speaking right now, I'm like constantly, I've gone down the rabbit hole and I can't get out. I'm constantly looking at the news. I know that that is not a form of self-care, but again, for reasons that I can't get into on here. This is affecting my family very personally, and I need to know what's going on. I need to be informed. And so, here are my 8 reasons why I believe writing your memoir manifesto is a form of activism. Okay, so breaking silence, number one, breaking silence and challenging oppression. This is what we do when we write our stories. We often highlight experiences that have been historically overlooked or silenced, such as gender discrimination, domestic violence, sexual harassment, reproductive rights, and workplace inequities or inequalities. By sharing these stories, memoirists explore injustices and bring attention to issues that need societal reform. I feel really worried because I feel like we've made a lot of progress. And again, I'm talking from an American perspective because I am an American and that's where I live right now. Um, we had made so much progress. And I can hardly like get these words out because I feel like I'm gonna cry, actually. And we've just taken so many steps back. And we cannot be silenced. We cannot let the venerable them, the big, huge machine of whatever it is, um, back us down into a hole where inequities exist. Sexual harassment is the regular, domestic violence is accepted, gender discrimination is expected. We have to keep sharing our stories. We have to keep educating. We have to keep inspiring and motivating and empowering our readers through the courageous act of telling the truth of what has happened to us. And a memoir manifesto is a really good way of doing that. We write to empower other women. our personal stories, and I'm sorry, I'm reading from my notes here, but I think I'm all over the place and I'm afraid I don't trust my mind right now, so I need some notes. Our personal stories can resonate with others who face similar struggles, offering validation and encouragement. Absolutely. We want to validate, we want to encourage through our story sharing. And I know that when I read other stories, it inspires me to speak up. It inspires me to assert my rights and challenge oppressive systems. I want to read, I got to find it real quick. One of our clients, we're ghostwriting for her. And I won't go into her story, like too big, because it's impending and we're still writing it. But she posted today. 1 year ago today, a jury of 12 decided in less than an hour that I won both cases. Truth won, justice prevailed, and now I get to tell the world my story coming soon. And she says, good things can come out of bad things happening to you. My healing journey has started with my story and sibling sexual abuse advocacy work. If I can help one other woman or little girl not go through the hell I have, I've won. And I'm like, yeah, that's why we exist. That's why we're here. That's the whole point of what we're doing. This is this is the work of advocates. This is how we advocate through storytelling. We can redefine womanhood and gender roles. Many memoirs push against traditional narratives of what it means to be a woman by showcasing diverse experiences of womanhood. We do that a lot in our anthologies. They provide alternative perspectives that challenge stereotypes about motherhood, marriage, career choices, and independence. Good God, I can think of so many stories in our anthologies where we do that, especially. Um, we can't just turn into the Handmaid's Tale. We cannot just submit. We know too much. We have too much experience, and there's too much work to do. And I know it feels really overwhelming. And you don't know where to get started. So maybe writing and sharing your story, maybe even just like a little caption on Instagram is where you begin. Maybe that's enough for today. And then maybe you add 500 words to that tomorrow and maybe 500 the next day. And before you know it, you've got 6,000 words and you can contribute a chapter to our anthologies, or you've got 30,000 words and you got half of a manuscript. Listen, it's going to take work, all of it. But when it's meaningful and it's connected to a greater purpose, we can get our butts out of bed and we can get in front of our keyboards and our computers and we can write. We're going to create historical and cultural records. This is an interesting thing to think about, right? Like memoirs serve as historical documents that preserve women's lived experiences. I hear this a lot from um, prospective authors that they want to have something to hand down to their children and their grandchildren. That's the reason, actually, the number one reason we wrote Impossible Odds, my husband and I, back in 2012 about the kidnapping and rescue was, I was pregnant with my son and I knew that life was going to become very full and very busy, very fast, and I was going to forget the details of what happened. And so we wanted to capture those details. Of course, we wanted to say thank you to the thousands of people that were involved, the FBI, all of the government officials that served, and the military personnel, SEAL Team 6, and of course, President Obama for issuing the order to get me out alive. But we wanted to have something, a legacy. And I think that that's really something important to think about in terms of your own legacy. Something to hand down to your daughter and her daughter and or if you're an auntie, to your nieces and to their children. Um, Putting your story down contributes to the collective memory of feminist struggles and victories. It's the library, right? If you think about adding your story and what you've overcome, what you're still dealing with, and what you hope to overcome in the work that you're doing, we use those as guidebooks. I can think of like Glennon Doyle, her Untamed has become one of those historical and cultural records for women coming back to themselves. Even Eat, Pray, Love, even in its more lighthearted in some ways approach has become a historical record to helping women free themselves from lives that they don't want to live. Those are in and of themselves, those are memoir manifestos. Those are declarations of beliefs based on experiences that have been lived by these women. They can inspire policy and social change. Oh, God. Personal stories often have a profound impact on policymakers, activists, and organizations working for women's rights. I just got a link. Let me see if I can find it. I should have had this pulled up for you guys. Sorry. But, like I said, it's kind of a struggle bus right now. I'm doing the best I can, but it's hard. Amanda Nguyen. And I'm not actually familiar with her story, but she had the most incredible trailer on Instagram. She's a civil rights astronaut, 2022 Time Woman of the Year, 2019 Nobel Peace Prize nominee. And she has written a book that's coming out called Saving Five. And her reel was Harvard was supposed to be my dream. And then it says, I was raped on campus. My dream became my nightmare. My rape kit took 6 hours in the hospital. I found out that the government could destroy my evidence untested at 6 months. I felt betrayed by the very system that was supposed to protect me. I had a choice, accept this injustice or rewrite the law. So I rewrote it. And then she's got all these amazing like videos of like going before Congress and the Senate. Congress passed it unanimously. Sexual assault victims' rights. Advocates praise Obama signs historic sexual assault law. So we did it all again at the United Nations. I'm reading the reel to you in real time. It took 6 years to convince the world. Many said it would be impossible, but impossible is just an opinion. The UN adopted it unanimously. Can you imagine all that pain going into something such meaningful contribution for the world to help women's rights, to help sexual assault victims. Um, you know, Not everybody is going to have a story like that. Not everybody is going to be called to advocacy work like that. But I just want to remind you of what's possible in a time where you may feel completely powerless and completely speechless and paralyzed. It builds empathy and awareness, sharing your stories. It provides readers with firsthand accounts of the struggles women face, helping to cultivate empathy and awareness. This emotional connection can mobilize allies and inspire activism in readers who may not have been previously engaged in feminist causes. Maybe it's not about you doing the activism. Maybe it's about inspiring somebody else to do it. Have you ever thought about that? We all have a part to play in cultivating a society that believes in the greater good. And maybe you are called to um, create beautiful words and messages that will resonate with other people, other women's hearts, and stir them to action. Maybe that is your job. We're not all called to do the same things in the same way. We need musicians, we need poets, we need memoirists, we need all sorts of women using their skills and the things and applying themselves to the things that light them up, so that we can turn horror into amazing contribution for the world. We can dismantle taboos and stigmas. That's number 7. Write about topics. We write a lot about sexual assault here. Know My Name by Chanel Miller is a great example. Reproductive health or mental illness. We talk a lot about mental illness here at Soul Speak Press. It helps challenge stigma and encourage open discussions about these issues, which we have to keep having. We have to stay open to these, especially in a climate that's becoming more and more closed off to the human condition. It also helps deconstruct shame and encourage societal support for affected individuals. I mean, I have friends who are supporting daughters and loved ones who are mentally ill. And we need to hear their stories so we can understand what it is that, yes, so that we can empathize and understand where they're coming from, but also so that we can be moved to advocacy in terms of policy and calling our congressmen and our senators and all the people that we need to call. Personal as political. Feminist movements emphasize that personal experiences are inherently political. You cannot separate those two. Memoirs embody this principle by showing how personal struggles reflect systemic issues. Through storytelling, memoirs connect individual experiences to larger feminist discourse, making them powerful tools for activism. And I'm not talking I'm not talking crazy feminist agenda here. I'm talking about, like healthcare. I'm talking about education. I'm talking about the law believing us when we've been assaulted. Um, it's clear that we've got a job to do. Our job here is not finished. We've gone back several steps. And I, for one, am fired up. And I'm going to keep telling my story, and I'm going to keep supporting other women in telling their stories as a form of activism here at Soul Speak Press. If you are with me on this and you want to support in some way and you don't know how, but you don't know how to write or you don't want to write, reach out to me anyway. We'll find a way. We'll figure out a way to mobilize and support you as you continue to support the work that lies ahead of us. And, for those of you who are writing, just write it out, write it out, write it out. It's the only way I know how to deal with what's going on in the world today. We'll need that historical context in that overview. All right, signing off. I'll see you next week. In Her Words is hosted by me, Jessica Buchanan, and is produced by Soul Speak Press, a non-traditional publishing house for women who are ready to tell their story. If you would like to know more about our submission process, I encourage you to check us out at www.soulspeakpress.com or follow us over on Instagram at Soul Speak Press. We appreciate all your questions, and if you would like to leave us a review, we would be so grateful.